particularly around World War I and II, where we were subsidizing grain production and bread production in order to make an affordable loaf of bread. And we developed this roller milling technology and this obsession with whiteness and purity as somehow being hallmarks of quality. And we also decided that flour needed to be flavorless, odorless, and colorless. And I don't believe that at all. I mean, rye varieties and corn varieties in particular have so many nuanced flavors and aromas to be celebrated and enjoyed, and we lose all of that. My name's James Brown, and I'm the proprietor of Barton Springs Mill in Dripping Springs, Texas. This is my second career after 30 years as a professional classical musician. I decided to make the transition to Miller. And as I started to bake more whole grain bread, I started hearing more and more about regional grain hubs and small regional or local grain collaboratives where people were growing and milling their own wheat. And I wanted to find something like that to use in my baking at home and couldn't really find anything in the state. So it became clear to me that that's what I needed to do.
The reason that heritage grains are so amazing is because A, they taste great. You know, each varietal is super unique. They look unique in color and texture, and they bring flavor ranges from baking spices to grass and hay and even chocolate. I mean, who knew that different varietals of wheat could have such diverse flavors?
It's very different than what a lot of other mills are doing where, you know, they're spot buying, they're taking what they can get. The only information you'll find on the bag is it's either hard wheat or soft wheat, spring or winter. We're working much more like a California winery would that is doing identity preserved grape varietals in a given wine. We're keeping those separate and we're identifying them and we're celebrating them. Initially, I thought we were gonna do this a couple of days a week, and I hired a one part-time employee. I made it a year and had to retire from my day job. And we're now 5 years in, and I have 10 employees. We started in a little 5,000 square foot warehouse, and we're now in a just under 19,000 square foot space, and we're about to add on. So it took off way faster than I thought it would. Danko is a traditional Polish rye.
You know, for Whole Foods, I picked the Yokora Rojo wheat, right, and the Abruzzi rye as being our two varietal picks. But just the flavor is amazing on both of them, especially when you combine them both. You know, it's exceptional.
Whole Foods and Sandeep have been a dream in terms of someone fully realizing with your product what can be done with it.
Grassy.
How does it shine best? Again, we talk about this disassociation with grain production. You can't hand someone a spoonful of flour and say, here, taste this, isn't that delicious? It doesn't work at all. So you need a partner that's willing to take that and show in its very best light. And Sandeep and his work through Whole Foods have been able to do that for us.
The analogy I like to look at is with pepper, like black pepper or coffee, you know? Like 30 years ago, maybe we were buying stuff that was already pre-ground, right? And now I would say consumers have shifted to buying the whole variety and grinding it to use. So you preserve that flavor. You know, flour that's been milled 6 months or a year ago does not have that same aroma or flavor as stuff that's freshly milled. We limit the distance that flour has to travel. We limit the time that it has to travel so that we get as close to that freshness, the initially milled freshness as possible.
I think my dream for food production in the United States would be that, first of all, that it's a profitable endeavor. You know, we need more farmers. We need farmers to be able to make a decent living. I worry about the fact that I go to a farm and see, you know, $2 to $2.5 million worth of farm equipment sitting there. But I also see a meager way of existence for our farmers. So this huge exposure, this huge risk for very small return, we have to fix that. I think part of that is educating the public about what it really takes to produce the food that goes on their table, and for them to really appreciate and value what it takes to do that, so that when we get to the point that we have to fairly pay, that they understand that the reason that there's increased cost there is because there has always been the increased value there.